guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new here. Hey, hello, my name is Angela. I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer. In today's video, we're going to be talking about temporary restraining orders, what they are, how to get one, and why they matter, especially when relationships, children, and reputations are involved. Now, as you guys have probably seen from the thumbnail, this video was inspired by the current drama that is going on in the celebrity headlines with actress and singer Halle and YouTuber and streamer DDG. Now, while their situation is in the spotlight right now, we've seen this play out before publicly with celebrities. Now, in case you're living under a rock or you have blocked all media as it relates to celebrity and gossip, that type of news, you have probably heard about what's going on with DDG and Halle. Now, in case you haven't heard about it, I'll give you guys a brief overview and then we'll go ahead and jump into temporary restraining orders. So let's talk about what's been reported so far as it relates to the temporary restraining order. On May 12th, it was revealed that actress Halle was granted a temporary restraining order against her child's father and ex-boyfriend, DDG. Reports say that she alleged both physical and verbal abuse, and she was ultimately granted a temporary restraining order by a judge. But the temporary restraining order, also known as a TRO, didn't just stop at her. It also included their toddler son. The court's ruling immediately impacted two important areas in each of their lives: their custody and visitation arrangement, even though it's just temporary at this point, and public perception. Social media has erupted in criticism and support towards both parties, all before a legal hearing has even taken place. This situation highlights how quickly restraining orders can affect the lives of people, especially when celebrities are involved. While the legal process is still unfolding, my hope is that both parties can ultimately find peace, safety, and resolution, especially for the sake of their young son. So now that you guys have a little bit of background, let's talk about the temporary restraining order. And I want to use this case as a preview to sort of talk about how temporary restraining orders work. Again, this is not legal advice. This is for entertainment and enlightenment. So before we get into all things TROs, as I mentioned, I am a lawyer. A lot of you guys probably found this channel because you used to watch a lot of my law school, lawyer life related content. You know, I've done a ton of content about pre-law, being in law school, how to succeed in law school, and how to ultimately succeed in your career as a lawyer. And so if you are still looking for that content, I still do that content, but I do it on a different platform. We are now over on Patreon, where we have the council crew and we have different tiers that you can join. We do a weekly live stream. Certain tiers get access to a quarterly meet with me, where we talk one-on-one about your personal pre-law or current law situation. And you guys, honestly, we are building a community over there. It's really, really great. I know you guys don't see me here every week, but they certainly see me weekly, and we talk lots throughout the week. So if that interests you, if you're looking for that content, head over to the Patreon and check out the tiers. I'll leave a link to that below. Now let's get into the temporary restraining orders. Again, a temporary restraining order is typically referred to as a TRO. So that's what I'm going to refer to it just for the ease of talking in this video. A TRO is a short-term legal order meant to protect someone from immediate harm or harassment. TROs are often granted ex parte. What that means in non-lawyer terms, that's sort of legalese, but what that means is it's granted without hearing from the other side. The judge only hears one side, the person who files for the restraining order. The accused person, or the person who was filing the restraining order, is seeking to be protected from. They get to tell their side later. And because TROs are designed to be fast acting to protect people, the threshold is lower than what you would see in typical sort of full court hearings and proceedings. It's gonna vary state by state, but typically a person only needs to submit a sworn statement detailing threats, harassment, abuse, those types of things that show that sort of emotional or physical harm. Now, it is important to note that these statements are made under the penalty of perjury. When judges review these statements and the request for a TRO, they will also usually consider where there's other people that are at risk, such as minor children. So if the judge reads the statement and the request for the TRO and they find that there's a credible and immediate threat, they will issue the order, which can come with very serious conditions, such as removal of a home, like if two people live together and the person filing the restraining order, the person who the restraining order is against may have to move out. because there's usually some, you can't be within 100 or 150 yards from this person. So you can't possibly live together, right? There's usually no contact rules where the person is not allowed to contact the person filing the restraining order on them. And if there are minor children involved, lots of times there is temporary custody loss as well. For example, if a father is filing a restraining order against a mother and he has the child in his care, or in Halle and DDG's case, she had the child in her care, DDG temporarily has lost custody of his son until they can get to their full hearing. So some of you guys might be asking, why is this a thing? Why can't a restraining order be granted against someone without even hearing their side? TROs exist for a reason. They can literally save lives or keep people safe. Victims of abuse or harassment don't always have the luxury of waiting weeks to get in front of a judge. The TRO essentially gives a legal pause, time to get safe, time to gather evidence, time to prepare for the court process. Especially in situations involving domestic violence or threats to children, this immediate legal protection can be crucial. The general standard of proof for obtaining a TRO is typically going to be something like a reasonable proof burden, which is a generally low standard when it comes to court proceedings, right? So again, the question still stands, why is this allowed? For two reasons. TROs are very temporary. They usually last just a few weeks until you can get to a full court hearing, and then that way people, you can hear both sides. More notably, they deal with situations that could be potentially dangerous, right? For the person filing the restraining order, like threats of violence, harm, abuse, those types of things. So while these types of orders can be intrusive and admittedly life-altering for the accused, the courts view the risk of harm to the petitioner, the person filing for the restraining order, as a priority in the short term. Now, there's one thing I want to address, because one of the things that spurred me talking about this video is because what I've seen on social media with people talking about restraining orders, and just as expected, most people don't know anything about restraining orders other than the word and like what they perceive it to mean. They don't know the legal process of how one is obtained, which if you're not a lawyer or you've never obtained one, that's fair. But I've heard people sort of misspeaking on the burden of proof for restraining orders and how those things work. So I thought it was important to sort of walk you through that threshold. But another thing I've seen people doing is talking about how people misuse or abuse the legal system for restraining orders. So I thought I would just acknowledge that. Now, to be clear, I'd like to believe that most people who request a restraining order are genuinely in danger or scared for their safety. But because the process is so fast and one-sided, it can be vulnerable to misuse, especially in contentious custody disputes or breakups, divorces, those types of things. For example, a TRO might give one parent full custody. Like I said before, it might force one person to have to move out of a shared home. This happens often in divorce cases. If there is a TRO or a permanent restraining order in place, two people cannot live in the home even though it's a marital home. Now, outside of these types of situations where there's violence or restraining orders in place, you can't just kick somebody out of the marital home, even if their name is not on the deed, right? So in these types of situations is where you find some people abuse or misuse the legal system because it's a tactic for some. But again, I'd like to believe that most people are not using it in this way. Another thing a TRO might do is restrict communication, not only with the person filing for the restraining order, the petitioner, but also with minor children. And another thing it can do is impact the case, particularly as it relates to in the court of public opinion. So when we're talking about celebrities or people who are widely known, a lot of times, people form their opinions about who's right, who's wrong, who's guilty, who's not guilty, way before any sort of real legal process has taken place. We've talked about this on this channel a lot before about how we have to be careful about the media, social media, and the court of public opinion and how it can impair the legal process. In the hopefully limited cases where TROs are used for strategy or misused, I should say, even if the allegations are proven to be wrong later, the damage can already be done, right? Emotionally, reputationally, and even legally. And like I said, it becomes even more complicated when we're talking about people who are famous. Because again, in the court of public opinion, just being sued or just being arrested can deem people as guilty or liable in the eyes of the court of public opinion, despite whether there's a guilty verdict. Know that a TRO is not a final judgment. It's a temporary measure designed to pause and protect. So let's tie this back to the Halle and DDG case. In her case, the court found her statement to be credible and strong enough to grant the TRO. And it was even extended to their toddler son. So like I said before, the TRO is very, very temporary. The next steps, they will actually have a full hearing where both parties can present their evidence, testimony, and legal arguments. As outside observers, we don't know everything, but we do know this. The TRO has already had a significant legal and emotional impact for everyone involved, I'm sure. Okay, so yeah, we talk about the celebrities. This is a big case going on right now. But let's talk about real life, right? Because most of us watching, most of us talking about this, we're just real life, everyday people. How does this affect everyday, non-famous people? Although the Halle and the DDG case, involve celebrities, TROs affect everyday people too. Parents, spouses, siblings, coworkers, roommates, you name it. So what's the takeaway here, right? TROs can be a powerful legal tool. I think it's important to note that they are designed to protect, not punish, right? It's also a reminder to let the legal process play out. A temporary restraining order is not a guilty verdict. It's a protective pause, legal stopgap until both sides can be heard. If you ever needed a TRO or you know someone who has needed one, you understand how urgent and necessary they can be. We should also acknowledge the system's complexity and how quickly social media or public perception can run ahead of the actual facts. So with that being said, I hope this sort of clears up what a TRO is, how they're obtained, acknowledging that yes, they can be misused, but the ultimate purpose and intent for them is to protect and keep people safe. Next time you see a celebrity in the news with a temporary restraining order, or maybe someone you know with one, hopefully you now have a better understanding of how they work, how you obtain one, and what the overall purpose and intention is behind courts granting them. I hope you found this video insightful. My intent here is to sort of go a little bit deeper behind the headlines, right? Like, let's talk about the legal process. Let's talk about how these things work in the system, rather than just running with the gossip, the drama, and those types of things. One thing I think is important to remember here is that although they are celebrities, these are real people going through real things, right? Domestic violence is a serious, serious issue. Family custody issues, family drama, those types of issues can take the worst emotional toll on people, right? So give people a little grace. Don't rush to make your own think pieces and attacking people and those types of things. Let the legal process play out. And at the end of the day, there are real people, real adults, and real children involved in these types of things. So if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, don't forget to comment. Let me know what your thoughts are about temporary restraining orders. What do you think about the process? Do you think it's working? Do you think anything should be tweaked? Let's talk about it respectfully, okay? And again, if you are looking for the law school lawyer life content, that is on the Patreon, and the link is in the description box below. With that, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.